Where do I even start with Genesis 19 here? What a crazy, wild chapter we're on. If you're paying close attention, like I've been paying close attention, really just focusing on everything being said here, it's 19 is not just about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. I think that the church tends to talk a lot about that, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. But there's so much more here that is the source of criticism of the Bible, where the Bible talks about incest and perverse sexual actions and things like that. I mean, Sodom and Gomorrah were seemingly destroyed because of their sin. They were destroyed because of their sin. A lot of people attribute that sin to sexual sin. And we see it here because the two angels that were with God, the three men that visited Abraham, they go and they visit Lot to tell him that they're going to go to warn him. They're going to destroy the city, and they're going to, usher him to safety, him and his family. Lot welcomes them. He insists that they come into his house. And at first, the angels are like, we're going to just hang out here for a while. And I think they knew what they were doing, because what ends up happening is the angels come into the house of Lot, and there's this mob that develops. And Sodom and Gomorrah is such a deprived place at this point that they're looking to have sexual relations with these two people, whatever that means. It's wild. They're begging Lot to open the door so they can know them carnally, as the King James Version says, or the New King James, which I'm reading. And, they warned Lot. They warned Lot that trouble, that this wasn't something that they should do. But because Lot insisted that they come into his house, they're like, all right, fine. Now, what this reminds me of is, as we pursue God, and we want to bring God more into our lives, we have to understand that not only when we bring God into our lives are we asking God for blessing, which is true. The angels were there to bless Lot. They were there to bless him. They were there to shepherd his family to safety, right? They were there to spare him from the destruction that was going to come upon Sodom and Gomorrah. But you also have to remember that if you're welcoming God into your life, you're also putting a target on your back. You're putting a target on your back for the wicked, for Satan. He's going to target you now. He's going to come to you. He's going to come to your house, and he's going to try to put attacks, and he's going to send people who are obeying his voice to your place. Now, I'm not saying that if you go to church and you follow God, people are going to knock on your door, and trying to attack you. But you're putting a target on your back. The enemy sees a target on your back now. And that's what we're seeing here play out. We're seeing the wicked. They're so lost, Sodom and Gomorrah, that they are being puppeteered by Satan. They're being puppeteered by Satan. And what's happening here now is they're trying to, get to Lot and destroy these men and destroy Lot and his family. And Lot, in an act of desperation and total disregard for his own children, offers his two virgin daughters to the mob instead. So, poor judgment. Poor judgment. We see that Lot is not a perfect person. He wasn't really prepared for what was going to happen. And we see later on further poor judgment in his family, with him and his daughters, and the act of incest that occurs that creates the neighboring nations of Israel, the Moabites and the Ammonites. So we see here that those nations, that those people, their origin is incestuous. It doesn't make them any less, of course. God God's will is for everyone to be saved, but it's just important to note here, I think. The chapter is wild. It's wild because this is not this. You start to read this and go, what am I reading here? This is not the God of love, but really, you got to look at the story. The angels came to spare Lot and his family. Lot made decisions. He made decisions. He welcomed them into his house, even though they said that they would reside outside the house, knowing that there would be trouble that would come to Lot's house if they were welcomed in. Then, as they were fleeing, this is the famous part, as they're fleeing, they say, "Don't look behind you. Don't look behind you." And of course, as they're fleeing the city, Lot's wife turns around and she is turned to a pillar of salt, and she perishes. So, the big takeaway there is, don't look back at your old life. When God is leading you into a place of salvation, when he is sanctifying you, when he is moving you from your old life of sin to a new life, a new beginning of salvation, don't look at your past. Don't look behind you at what you used to have. Don't lament what you used to have. Run forward toward what God has for you. So there's so much in this chapter that I wish I could cover in more detail, but I want to keep these videos concise and brief, and I think that we covered enough here to really get an understanding of what chapter 19 is about. But really, just a couple things to keep in mind. When you welcome God into your life, when you welcome the blessing of God, you're also opening up the potential for enemies to want to come against you. There's going to be persecution. Jesus promises it. He promises that you're going to have a target on your back, that the world will hate you because they hated me first. That's one thing. The second thing is, don't look back. Don't look back. When God has something new for you, when God is taking you from your old life of sin to salvation, don't look back at your former ways. Don't look back at your former place of where you were. Run forward. Whatever that means for you, run forward towards the place that God is leading you to. And of course, we'll find out more about Lot's poor judgment here, his daughters and their poor judgment. It's kind of funny how Lot offers up his 2 virgin daughters to the mob, and then they turn around and commit this incestuous act. It just shows you that, the depravity of Sodom and Gomorrah bled into their family. That's what I see here too as well. Like, if you are living among sinful people, if you are residing around sinful people, it doesn't matter how righteous you are. It doesn't matter how much you believe in God. Those behaviors of those sinful people, their culture is going to bleed into your life. That's what they were exposed to. They were exposed to sexual sin over and over again. They were exposed to unrighteousness. So it bled into their life, and it leads to this poor judgment that both of them, all of them exhibit. All 4 of them, really. Lot's poor judgment in offering up his daughters. His wife's poor judgment in looking back at the life that she once had when she was told not to. And then his 2 daughters and their poor judgment in committing this act of incest with their father. So crazy stuff. We're moving along in Genesis, and we're getting closer to the birth of Isaac, who we had talked about in previous chapters. So I'll stop there for today. Have a blessed day. Talk to you soon.